The courtroom smelled like old wood and older secrets. 12-year-old Eli Carter sat on the last bench, his sneaker soles barely touching the floor, legs stiff, fingers gripping the seat so hard his knuckles looked like chalk. He wasn't supposed to be here. Children didn't belong in rooms where everyone wore suits, whispered lies, and pretended it was truth. But Eli didn't come here to belong. He came here because he had no choice. Next to him sat the only adult he trusted in the world, Ava Reynolds, his late mother's closest friend and the woman fighting to protect him from everything waiting outside these walls. She leaned slightly toward him, whisper soft. "You okay, kiddo?" Eli nodded, but the truth was pulsing behind his eyes. He had barely slept since the night everything cracked open. The night he heard the yelling. The crash. The gunshot. The night he watched Officer Mitchell walk out of his house with blood on his sleeves. He could still hear that sound, the click of the safety, the slow breath, the cold stare. Eli had replayed it so many times in his mind that he could draw the officer's shadow from memory. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Kids were supposed to fear monsters under the bed. Not the ones wearing badges. Ava squeezed his hand. "Remember, you don't have to be brave for them. Just tell the truth." Truth. A small word. A big battlefield. The prosecutor walked in, papers tucked under one arm, posture sharp enough to slice steel. Ava whispered his name into Eli's ear. "Mr. Alden. He's on our side." But being on your side meant nothing when the other side had power, money, and the badge that protected Officer Mitchell like armor. Eli looked toward the front of the courtroom where Mitchell sat in his press uniform. Calm. Comfortable. Like this was just another day at work. Their eyes met for a flicker of a second. Cold lightning shot through Eli's chest. Mitchell smirked. A tiny smirk. But one that said everything. "No one will believe you, kid." Eli's breath caught. Ava immediately noticed. "Look at me," she whispered. He forced his head around. "You're safe. You're with me. He can't touch you here." But Eli knew better. Monsters didn't need to touch you to ruin you. The judge entered. Everyone rose. Eli stood too, though his knees wobbled. The gavel struck, a sharp, merciless crack. "Court is now in session." The prosecutor started carefully. Methodically. Like arranging glass on a shelf. He called in officers, forensic analysts, neighbors who had heard the shot. But no one saw what Eli saw. No one heard what Eli heard. No one smelled the gunpowder in the air that night. No one except him. And that was the problem. Because in this room, the truth wasn't the truth unless an adult said it was. Finally, Ava's hand tightened around his. "Eli," she whispered, voice steady. "They're calling you." The room dimmed in his mind. The sound of chairs scraping blurred into a hum. His heartbeat drowned out everything else. He stood. He walked. Each step felt like it belonged to someone else. Up the aisle. Past suit jackets. Past curious eyes. Past the man who killed his mother. He climbed the witness stand. His legs didn't stop shaking until he sat down, and even then, the tremor stayed in his fingertips. The clerk came forward. "Do you swear to tell the truth?" A small voice escaped him before the question even ended. "Yes." The prosecutor approached gently. "Eli, can you tell the court where you were the night of May 14th? Eli swallowed. Here it was. The moment grown-ups feared. Not a killer. Not a cover-up. Not even a corrupt officer. They feared the one thing they couldn't control. A child who refused to stay silent. "I was in my room," he said, voice trembling but clear. "And I heard yelling downstairs. My mom said she didn't want him in the house. She said he should leave." "And who was she talking to?" Eli pointed. Not with anger. Not with revenge. Just simple truth. Him. Gasps. Whispers. Chairs creaking. Mitchell's jaw clenched, but otherwise he didn't move. The prosecutor nodded. "What happened next?" Eli looked down at his hands. The same hands that had pushed his dresser in front of his door, that had covered his ears, that had trembled when the stairs creaked. "I heard a loud bang," he whispered. "And then my mom, she didn't yell anymore." A hush fell so heavy the walls seemed to hold their breath. The prosecutor stepped back. No further questions. Then came the defense attorney, a tall man with perfect hair and a smile that felt like poison wrapped in silk. "Eli," he said smoothly, "you're a child. Children get scared. Children imagine things. Are you sure you heard what you think you heard?" Ava tensed. Eli's throat tightened. But he remembered Ava's words. "Just tell the truth." "I didn't imagine anything," Eli said softly. "I know what I heard." "And did you see this officer fire a gun?" "No," Eli whispered. The defense attorney smiled like he had won. But Eli wasn't finished. "I saw him afterward," he said. "Coming out of our kitchen. With blood on his shirt." The smile vanished. The courtroom erupted. Reporters scribbled. The judge banged his gavel. Mitchell's face twitched for the first time. Eli sat very still on the witness stand, chest rising and falling quickly. For the first time since the night of the shooting, he felt something unfamiliar. Not safety. Not relief. Power. Because now the truth wasn't locked inside his small body. Now it belonged to the entire room. The moment Eli stepped down from the witness stand, the courtroom no longer felt like a room. It felt like a storm. Thunder wasn't crashing, but the murmurs felt like rolling lightning. Eyes followed him, journalists, strangers, officers whispering behind their hands. Everyone wanted to see the small boy who had pointed at a man with a badge and said, "He did it." Ava placed a hand on his shoulder the moment he reached her. He didn't realize he was shaking until her warmth steadied him. "You did incredible," she whispered. Eli didn't feel incredible. He felt cracked open. He held on to Ava's sleeve as they walked toward the exit. He didn't want to stay here any longer. He didn't want to sit on that cold bench, smell that stale air, or feel Mitchell's eyes on him again. But as soon as they reached the hallway, he froze. Mitchell stood there. Not in cuffs. Not guarded. Not nervous. Just standing. Just watching. His gaze slid toward Eli like a knife searching for a soft place to rest. Ava stepped in front of Eli instantly, her arm forming a human shield. "Stay behind me," she murmured. Mitchell didn't move. Didn't blink. Just stared. The hallway light flickered above them, once, twice, casting sharp shadows across the officer's face. His jaw was tight, his posture stiff, but his eyes were alive with the same cold certainty Eli saw the night of the shooting. A certainty that said, "You're not safe." Ava held her ground. She wasn't afraid of men like Mitchell. She wasn't afraid of boots, uniforms, or threats hidden behind polite smiles. But she could feel Eli trembling behind her, his small fingers digging into her coat. "Let's go," she whispered, guiding him down the hall. Mitchell didn't follow. But the silence he left behind did. It followed Eli into the elevator, where the metal doors closed too loudly. It followed him into the street, where reporters shouted questions neither of them answered. It followed him all the way to the car, where Ava buckled him into the seat like he was 6 again. Only when they began driving did Eli finally speak. "Ava, what if they don't believe me?" She kept her hands steady on the wheel. She didn't look at him. Looking would make her voice break. "They will," she said softly. "But what if?" "They will," she repeated, firmer this time. Eli stared out the window. The city moved by in blurry shapes, buildings leaning over the road, pedestrians crossing too slowly, sirens echoing in the distance. It felt like the whole world was loud except for him. Ava glanced at him at a red light. "Talk to me." Eli shook his head. "I don't want to." "Yes, you do," she said. He swallowed. "He looked at me like he already won." Ava's throat tightened. "He didn't. He thinks no one will believe a kid," Eli whispered. Ava reached over and squeezed his hand. People underestimate the wrong kids. The light turned green. The car moved on. But the weight didn't move out of Eli's chest. They reached Ava's apartment, a small, warm place with yellow lamps and books everywhere. Eli usually loved it here. It smelled like cinnamon and old stories. But today, he walked inside like someone entering a shelter during a storm. He dropped onto the couch, burying his face into a pillow. Ava sat beside him. Not too close. Not too far. Just close enough for him to know she was there. After a long moment, she spoke. You know, your mother was the bravest woman I ever met. Eli's breath itched. She never backed down from anyone. Ava continued. Not bosses. Not bills. Not mistakes. Not fear. His throat tightened. But she didn't win. Ava shook her head gently. You don't measure strength by who survives. You measure it by who refuses to stay silent. Eli wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. I wasn't strong. I was scared the whole time. You can be scared and brave at the same time, she said softly. Grown-ups forget that. Children don't. He finally looked at her. And for the first time, she saw not the frightened boy who testified, but the steady gaze of someone who had lost too much to ever lie again. What happens next? He asked. Ava exhaled slowly. The court will review your testimony. There will be more hearings. Eli nodded. And Mitchell? He whispered. Ava hesitated. He'll be careful now. He knows everyone's watching him. But Eli's stomach twisted. He didn't believe that. When night finally crept into the apartment, shadows stretched across the walls. Ava set up blankets for him on the couch. She left the hallway light on. She knew he wouldn't ask for it, but he needed it. He lay awake long after she went to her room. Every creak of the building felt like a footstep. Every car passing outside felt like someone watching. Every shadow near the door looked like the shape of a uniform. But the scariest thought came quietly. Like a whisper he didn't want to hear. What if Mitchell wasn't waiting in the hallway outside the courtroom? What if he was waiting somewhere worse? Eli clutched the edge of the blanket, pulling it up to his chin. He wasn't afraid of monsters anymore. He was afraid of men who pretended they weren't. And somewhere out there, in the dark city, in a house too quiet to be safe, Mitchell was planning his next move. And Eli couldn't shake the feeling. The shadow that followed him today wasn't done following him yet. Sleep didn't come for Eli. Not even for a minute. He lay on the couch, eyes open, staring at the dim hallway light Ava left on for him. Shadows moved on the walls every time a car passed outside. The old apartment creaked as if someone were pacing above them. Around 2 a.m., he gave up on pretending. He sat up, hugging his knees. His chest felt tight, like something invisible was pressing down on it. Ava was asleep in her room down the hall. He didn't want to wake her. She had done enough. More than most adults ever had. But the silence was too loud. Too heavy. Too wrong. So he stood, walked quietly to the kitchen, and poured himself water, hands still slightly shaking from the courtroom. That's when he heard it. A soft click. At the door. Not loud. Not forceful. Just a gentle, deliberate click. Eli froze. His breath stopped. His fingers tightened around the glass until it nearly slipped. Another sound followed. Metal brushing metal. Slow, practiced, patient. Someone was testing the lock. Eli's heartbeat tried to escape his chest. He tiptoed toward the hall, whispering, Ava! Ava! But the words were too small to reach her door. The lock clicked again. This time louder. More certain. Eli backed up until he hit the wall, hands trembling uncontrollably. He squeezed his eyes shut for 1 second. Please be the wind. Please be the wind. But he knew. Deep inside. He knew. Monsters didn't need the dark. They just needed time. He ran to Ava's room and shook her shoulder with desperate urgency. Ava! Ava! Someone's at the door! Her eyes snapped open instantly. She didn't ask questions. She didn't tell him he was imagining things. She grabbed him by the wrist and pulled him behind her. Another sound echoed through the apartment. The subtle rattle of a door handle being tested. Ava's voice dropped to a whisper. "Get behind me!" "Now." Eli obeyed, pressing himself into her back. The living room was dark except for the soft glow from the hallway. The front door stood at the far end. A shadow moved beneath the frame, slow, steady, unmistakably human. Ava stepped forward cautiously. "Who's there?" Her voice was strong, though Eli could feel the tension in her shoulders. Silence. Then, tap, tap, tap. 3 slow knocks. Knocks that weren't asking permission. Knocks that were saying, "I know you're awake. I know you're listening. I know you're inside." Ava moved toward the kitchen and quietly reached for her phone. Eli held her sleeve, whispering, "Don't go near the door, please, please don't." She squeezed his hand. "I won't. Stay with me." She dialed 911. The operator answered quickly. Ava kept her voice low. "This is Ava Reynolds, apartment 3B. Someone is trying to break into my home. A child is with me. We need officers dispatched immediately." A sound cut her off. Not knocking. Not rattling. Scraping. Long, slow scraping. Like metal dragging across a frame. Eli's blood turned cold. Ava gripped the phone harder. "Please send someone now. Officers are en route," the operator said. Ava backed away from the door, pulling Eli with her. She positioned herself between him and the entrance again. Her breath came out unsteady now, but her posture stayed tall. Then, without warning, the door handle jerked. Hard. Eli flinched so violently he hit the wall. Ava stepped forward a single step and shouted, "Whoever you are, the police are on the way." Silence followed. A long, heavy silence. Then the shadow under the door shifted, stepped back, and slowly faded. Eli's breath finally started coming again, shaky and uneven. Ava wrapped an arm around him and held him close. "It's okay. It's okay. You're safe. They're coming." But Eli didn't feel safe. Not even close. He whispered into her side, "It was him. I know it was him." Ava closed her eyes. "I know." 5 minutes later, the police arrived, 2 officers knocking loudly, announcing themselves. Ava verified through the peephole before opening the door. But Mitchell was nowhere in sight. Just darkness in the hallway. The officers searched the building. Nothing. No footprints. No cameras. No witnesses. Nothing to prove someone had been there. One of the officers glanced at Ava. "Are you sure you weren't just, stressed after the court session? Kids can get jumpy." Ava's eyes flashed with anger. Eli felt her arms tense. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't argue. She just said one sentence. "Something was here." The officers exchanged a look, took a token report, and left. When the door shut, Ava locked it twice and slid the heavy chain across. Then she crouched in front of Eli, touching his cheek gently. "You're safe here," she whispered. But Eli looked toward the door. The scrape marks were still there, thin, fresh scratches in the paint. He reached out and touched them with trembling fingers. "Safe," he repeated quietly. But his voice didn't believe it. He lay awake again that night. Except this time, he didn't stare at the hallway light. He stared at the door. At the scratches. At the darkness behind it. And somewhere far away, or maybe closer than either of them realized, Mitchell was out there. Not hiding. Not running. Just waiting. Because monsters didn't need to break down doors. Sometimes they just needed the child behind them to know, "I can reach you whenever I want." Morning didn't come slowly. It crashed into the apartment like a spotlight breaking open the night. Ava had barely slept. Eli hadn't slept at all. He sat on the couch, knees pulled to his chest, eyes heavy but wide open, watching the door like something was still standing on the other side. Ava brought him warm tea, even though his small hands shook too much to hold it. She sat beside him, matching his silence. Hours passed. Slowly. Thickly. Like time had turned to glue. By late afternoon, Ava's phone rang. The caller ID made her blood run cold. Unknown. Eli stiffened. Ava answered, but kept the phone on speaker. A calm, male voice filled the room. I hope the boy slept well. Eli's breath left his body like someone punched the air out of him. Ava stood instantly, rage exploding behind her eyes. Mitchell, if you come near this child again. Mitchell chuckled. I came near him last night. Eli covered his mouth, fingers shaking. Ava's voice dropped to a deadly calm. What do you want? What I've always wanted, Mitchell said. Silence. The kind your friend, his mother, refused to give me. The kind he won't give me now. Ava placed a protective hand on Eli's back. Mitchell's voice sharpened. Tell the boy I'm giving him one chance. Retract his statement. Say he misheard. Or the next knock at your door won't be gentle. The call ended. Ava lowered the phone slowly. The silent apartment felt like it was holding its breath. Eli looked up at her, face pale. Ava, we have to leave. Please, we have to leave. He's going to come here again. Ava knelt in front of him. We're not running. Running gives him control. He already has control, Eli whispered. He knows where we are. He knows everything. Ava held his shoulders. No. The only power he has is fear. And we are done giving him that. Tears filled Eli's eyes. I don't want to die like my mom. Those words. They shattered something inside her. Ava pulled him into her arms, squeezing him as tightly as she dared. You won't. I promise you, he will never touch you. But promises were fragile things. Especially against men like Mitchell. Ava stood up and made a decision she had been avoiding. We're going back to the courthouse. Eli's eyes widened. Now? Yes, she said. We tell the prosecutor everything, about the threat, about the break-in, about the call. Mitchell is digging his own grave every time he tries to scare you. Eli hesitated. But what if he follows us? Ava took his hand. Then he'll follow us into a building full of cameras, officers, and a judge who already dislikes him. Let him. Eli swallowed hard. Then nodded. They left the apartment, taking the stairwell instead of the elevator. Each step echoed. Eli clung to Ava's hand like a lifeline. Outside, the sky was gray, thick clouds hanging low, like the world knew this day wasn't meant for sunlight. They reached the courthouse quickly. Security scanned Ava's ID, let them through, and directed them toward the prosecutor's office. But as they rounded the corner, Eli stopped so suddenly Ava almost tripped. There, standing at the end of the hallway, leaning against the wall with casual arrogance. Mitchell. In uniform. Arms crossed. Smirk in place. Eli stumbled backward, breath catching. Ava immediately stepped in front of him. Mitchell tilted his head. You two are early. I was expecting you later. Ava's voice cut through the hallway like a blade. You came here? I work here, he said, shrugging. And I protect this building. Including witnesses. Eli felt bow rise in his throat. Mitchell stepped forward. Ava raised a hand. Don't come closer. Mitchell's smirk twitched. Or what? You'll call the police on a police officer? Then he leaned in slightly, voice low. This boy's life gets very unstable if he keeps talking. Something snapped inside Eli. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was anger. Maybe it was his mother's voice echoing from the past. But for the first time, he stepped out from behind Ava. And spoke. You killed her! Mitchell's smile vanished. Eli kept going, voice shaking, but louder than before. You shot my mom. You thought no one heard. But I did. And I'm not taking it back. Mitchell took a single step toward him. Ava pulled Eli behind her, just as a new voice boomed down the hallway. "Officer Mitchell!" Everyone turned. The prosecutor, Mr. Alden, was marching toward them with two internal affairs officers behind him. Mitchell's expression hardened. "This is not what it looks like." "Oh, it looks exactly like what it is," Alden snapped. "Witness intimidation." The IA officers stepped forward. "Officer Mitchell, hands where we can see them." Mitchell finally lost the mask. No, this is insane. He's lying. The woman is lying. They're trying to frame me." Eli stepped around Ava again. "I'm not lying." Mitchell stared at him, eyes wild with disbelief. Because for the first time, someone smaller, younger, and weaker wasn't afraid of him anymore. Ava held Eli's shoulder tightly. The IA officers grabbed Mitchell's wrists. Handcuffs clicked. The sound echoed like justice finally breathing. Mitchell shouted, "You're making a mistake. I am the law." Ava met his eyes coldly. "No. You've been hiding behind it." They dragged him down the hall as he kept yelling, voice cracked with panic, not control. Eli watched until Mitchell disappeared behind a corner. His knees felt weak. His chest felt lighter. Alden knelt to face him. "You did something today most adults can't do." Eli didn't feel heroic. He felt tired. Exhausted. But safe. For the first time in months. Safe. Ava wrapped her arm around him, guiding him toward the exit. Outside, the clouds finally broke. A thin beam of sunlight slipped through, touching Eli's face. Ava looked down at him. "How do you feel?" Eli thought for a moment. Then spoke the truth. "Like she can finally rest." Ava smiled softly. "And so can you." He took a deep breath. For the first time, it didn't shake. Because the truth he carried, the truth he protected, was no longer a burden. It was freedom. Justice didn't just happen in courtrooms. Sometimes, it happened through the eyes of a child.